My brothers and sisters, my blood, it's your friendly internet logic swordsman, but you can call me Key. It's been quite a while since we last touched base, and I do apologize for that. I haven't been completely off the grid for the past 6 months, though, as those of you on my Discord and Twitter are aware. It's just been difficult for me since July, to put it mildly. What I want to do here is give somewhat of an explanation for where I've been and discuss what I plan to do on here moving forward. I don't want this to sound like a pity session, but the truth of the matter is that my mental and emotional health have been pretty poor following a certain situation that came about, and it's been hard to function. I've really been struggling with depression and anxiety, and I'm not gonna lie, there are days where I wish I could just drop dead and be done with everything. It seems like my entire adult life has been 1 step forward and 8 steps back in trying to get past all the things that left me damaged growing up, and no matter what I do, no matter how hard I try to do the right thing and get myself to a good place so I can be normal and not just an outside observer of the human experience for a change, I just can't catch a break. And it's got me very worn out. I'm only half kidding when I say I feel like I'm pushing 50, even though I'm only 24. But again, I don't want to dwell too much on that here. There will be time to discuss all those things in the future. For now, I'll focus on keeping this reasonably brief. First of all, what happened to my previous channel? Right after it was taken down on the 23rd of July, I submitted an appeal, but YouTube refused to reinstate it despite the baffling reason they gave for wrongfully terminating it to begin with. That reason being spam, scams, and commercially deceptive content. Looking back at the content I've uploaded and the descriptions I've provided over the past 7 years since creating that channel, I can't for the life of me see where that could have possibly been applicable, and the only times that I even approached talking about money were less overt than pretty much anyone else on the platform. I had a PayPal link and a Bitcoin address buried in my video description starting last year that I drew next to no attention to, opting to leave those for anyone who was inclined to use them, and I discontinued my Patreon because I just didn't feel right having one when I didn't think I'd earned it yet. I was very upfront about all of it, and I did less with it than others who have no such issues, so I don't know, just my luck, I guess. Maybe somebody had a bone to pick with me and no argument, so they took the underhanded route and false flagged me, or maybe it was just bad luck and I got screwed by the automated system and lazy YouTube employees who didn't see a point in taking the time to properly address an appeal from someone who didn't have 500,000 subscribers. Occam's razor would say it's the latter, and that's what I choose to believe given what we all know about this site, but I'll probably never find out for sure. But, of course, that was nothing, and I would have simply jumped over to my alt and dealt with it like I dealt with losing my first channel in 2010. That's basically what I've done here, albeit with a considerable delay. It sucks to lose all the views, comments, subscribers, and original metadata for my videos, and I'm pretty annoyed by it, but ultimately it would have been no big deal to just pick back up in August once I'd cooled down a little. Aside from my stream archives, I still have pretty much all my videos saved. No, losing my channel was only the beginning and the least of the misfortunes that decided to dogpile me for seemingly no reason other than I had been happy for a whopping 5 months, and that was just too much for the universe to allow. I'm being facetious, of course. I don't really believe that was the reason, but it just feels like it sometimes, you know? It's like that old Nickelback song. Something's gotta go wrong 'cause I'm feeling way too damn good. You know, I'm bad at that, but you know, you get the point. Well, it's unfortunately apropos that the very next line in that song is, "Yeah, it's like every time I turn around, I fall in love and find my heart face down and..." Because that's pretty much what happened. And while your initial reaction may be, well, that happens to everybody, get over it, and just hold your judgment. Rejection is one thing, it's perfectly normal. Everybody goes through it and needs to be able to take it, and I've got a pretty good handle on that. I've had a few girls respectfully decline my interest before, and while it was disappointing, I didn't go to pieces over it or get indignant and upset, and we were able to stay friends as if nothing had changed between us, like how adults should be able to. But this wasn't a typical situation. There was no direct discussion, no opportunity to correct any misunderstandings, just the most painful and traumatic thing that could have come from an otherwise sweet and gentle woman who I did and still do think the world of, and who I trusted enough to genuinely and very deeply love, despite how difficult that is for me to do. And because of that, it really fucked me up. In short, she ghosted me for a second time after telling me everything was okay. This gets a bit deep and delves into a lot of my personal history, and while I had originally tried to explain it as best I could without leaving too much out or having it be too long for this video, I decided it would be best if I just waited and explained it separately to give proper context and fully unpack it. I just couldn't do it justice here, and it felt out of place. In short, though, I'm still not doing great, or even passably well for that matter, but I want to try getting back in the YouTube game as much as I can, because there are things I have to say that I believe have value, and I'm tired of keeping them to myself or not being heard when I do speak up. I want to reach out and channel my pain and frustration into something that can hopefully be productive, because enough is enough with this rut. I'm sick of it. So that brings us to what I plan on doing with this channel. Before this situation ripped my heart out and turned my world on its head, I had spent 2 years developing some much-needed self-knowledge and learning about philosophy not as an academic pursuit, but as a practical application of critical thought. It's something that brought me out of my previous pit after a particularly messy relationship when I was 20, and it had given me the clarity and laid the groundwork that helped me improve myself tremendously. If not for philosophy and the person I learned from and continue to learn from, Stefan Molyneux, I would no doubt be in an even worse place right now without so much as a hint of clarity. I may be damaged and wounded, but I'm not broken, and I have the principles and ability to reason that I've developed to thank for that. If 2010 to 2016 were about developing my skepticism and understanding of logic and objective evidence-based thinking, the past 2 years have been about refining and building upon those skills and using them for self-improvement, which is something I intend to continue. Something I've always believed in is the power and importance of the truth, finding it and speaking it. To quote Five Finger Death Punch, "Even if I'm wrong, honesty is everything. It's what I know and it's what I believe." It's what drove me to question religion and other supernatural claims in high school and brought me to the conclusion that I could no longer accept those claims as true. It's what drove me to question my political beliefs that up until 2015 had been fairly nebulous but inflexible, and brought me to the conclusion that much of what I believed needed to be better defined, altered, or even entirely replaced. And it's what continues to drive me in every aspect of my intellectual life. Even if the truth isn't the most palatable thing or what conforms to our existing worldviews, Carl Sagan was right to say that we have the wrenching obligation to accommodate to the way the universe really is. Carl Sagan was one of the most influential people in my development as an intellectual, and in particular, his book, The Demon-Haunted World, was and still is easily the most profoundly mind-expanding book I've ever read, from my first time at 15 years old to now, almost a decade later. He taught me the invaluable lesson that, as he put it, science is more than a body of knowledge. It's a way of thinking, a way of skeptically interrogating the universe with a fine understanding of human fallibility. Nobody's perfect in anything. I have my lapses in judgment just like everyone else. But even with people who I trust to act in good faith and who I don't believe would lie to me, I'm skeptical. I ask questions like, are they letting their personal biases cloud their judgment? Are they potentially mistaken about this? What's the likelihood that they are? Are they being inflexible about what they believe? And of course I do the same for myself. It's only responsible of me to. Even if I don't verbalize it, I'm always questioning and analyzing claims and positions and making mental notes, wanting to deconstruct what's being said with the purpose of trying to piece it back together to see if it holds up as empirically valid. It's just something that my mind does almost as a matter of reflex, but it's an incredibly important skill to have and something I believe everyone is fundamentally capable of with enough effort and the right kind of instruction. I care about finding out if my beliefs are true, whatever they might be, and so should everyone. The job of the philosopher has always been to question the accepted beliefs of the time, testing them against the impartial metrics of reason and evidence, regardless of social backlash. That's what I want to do here. To ask questions, engage in friendly and productive dialogues with people I both agree and disagree with, find out what's true and what isn't, and discover things that have personal and practical implications in the real world, and make it at least somewhat entertaining and understandable to an audience who might otherwise not be interested in or exposed to these topics. My intended method is to use fiction that I find appealing and that hopefully will make what might otherwise be dry, obtuse, or esoteric material more palatable and accessible, because there are real lessons to be learned from things that are otherwise anything but real. While I'm not always going to touch on the most highbrow subject matter or the most intellectually taxing concepts, my goal is to communicate principles, ideas, and cognitive skills that are fundamental to clear, rational, critical thought, and help people learn to think in a way that, in no uncertain terms, the abysmal public education system has sorely failed them in. I realize how that sounds. By no means would I consider myself some kind of high-order intellectual who knows everything and is so much smarter than everyone else. That kind of hubris is absurd and just doesn't jive with my personality, but I do recognize the areas in which I have something that I can impart on others who haven't been exposed to what I have, and I think that by doing so I can help them in meaningful ways. Being the naturally quiet and reserved person I am, though, I don't have a lot of experience with being a public figure, and so a lot of the nuances and skills of running a successful channel and growing quickly as I'd naturally like to are a little less than natural to me. I'm not Stefan. I'm not a skilled orator who can think on my feet and reliably articulate an argument or eloquent witticism on the spot like he can. That takes a level of practice that I simply haven't had. But I'm willing to try because I care. I'm gonna fuck up and make mistakes that might even be tremendously embarrassing. But if you're not willing to fail and make a fool of yourself, then you'll never stand a chance at succeeding. I think it should be said that I'm not an academic, and I have no intention of emulating that style of content if it can be helped. My videos aren't going to be video essays. I'm not interested in giving facts out of a textbook or article to sound smart and educated for 10 minutes, and then act like I've made my audience smarter by spoon-feeding them information they'll probably forget that same day. I want to provide real intellectual content with an authentic, personable, and approachable style that helps my audience to think more deeply and in different ways about a wider variety of things than they may have before, and discover things about the world and themselves. I got a few comments previously about how I'd managed to do that for some people, and those were the comments I really liked to see. The ones that showed that I had made a difference for someone and opened their mind up to something new. I want to see more of that. So I guess, with all that being said, what exactly is the plan? Well, it's to experiment. To be honest about what I think and who I am, and see what does and doesn't work for both me and my audience, but without compromising my authenticity and commitment to objectivity and honesty. That's something that I think so many channels have lost sight of in pursuit of numbers, and that's just not me. I want my numbers to mean something, not just be a reflection of my ability to ride search trends and keep up with the algorithm and be the most vibrant showman with the flashiest editing. I believe that the personality and arguments are what should carry a YouTube channel, and as long as the quality of the audio and video aren't painful to sit through, those things are secondary. And this is coming from a guy who made AMVs for almost a decade. I'm a stickler for editing, and I'm always looking for ways to improve my own, so believe me when I say that I get the value of a nice visual presentation. I just don't think it's as important in the kinds of videos I want to make. This channel is going to be one part philosophy show in the image of free domain radio, where I'm going to discuss ideas and have a call-in show where the audience can participate and have a one-on-one discussion with me about practically anything. One part technology channel where I'm going to just share my thoughts about different computer-related topics and advancements in those areas that I find interesting enough to discuss. One part anime channel where I'm going to discuss anime that I like and dislike and why. One part game channel where I'm going to stream like I used to, and I've even thought about getting into some music on some level, though to what extent I've yet to determine. Really, what Virtual Axiom is about at the end of the day is the original tagline of YouTube: broadcast yourself. It's about what makes me tick and applying that in a way that can hopefully resonate with and enrich others on some level to build a community of peaceful, rational, intellectually diverse people who can have real conversations about real ideas and improve their lives. It's about exploring the division between the real and virtual worlds, finding out where that line blurs and what we can learn from it. And with that, I think we're done here for the time being. I appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to interacting with every one of you in the comments and on Twitter and Discord. Don't be afraid to get in touch with me, and if you have something you want to talk about, possibly as an episode for a call-in show if you're interested in doing that, I'd be happy to discuss it with you. I'm very flexible in that regard, and the most innocuous topic could lead to an interesting discussion, so don't be shy. Lord knows I'm shy enough for the both of us. I'll talk to you all again soon. Take care.
There's two kinds of dangers. One is what I just talked about, that we've arranged a society based on science and technology, in which nobody understands anything about science and technology, and this combustible mixture of ignorance and power, sooner or later, is going to blow up in our faces. I mean, who is running the science and technology in a democracy if the people don't know anything about it? And the second reason that I'm worried about this is that science is more than a body of knowledge. It's a way of thinking, a way of skeptically interrogating the universe with a fine understanding of human fallibility. If we are not able to ask skeptical questions, to interrogate those who tell us that something is true, to be skeptical of those in authority, then we're up for grabs for the next charlatan, political or religious, who comes ambling along. It's a thing that Jefferson lay great stress on. It wasn't enough, he said, to enshrine some rights in a constitution or a Bill of Rights. The people had to be educated, and they had to practice their skepticism and their education. Otherwise, we don't run the government. The government runs us. Now, I don't propose to tell anybody what to believe, but for me, believing when there's no compelling evidence is a mistake. The idea is to withhold belief until there is compelling evidence. And if the universe does not comply with our predispositions, okay, then we have the wrenching obligation to accommodate to the way the universe really is.
You convinced me a long time ago that it was arrogant for me or for anyone else to believe that there wasn't some life outside of our...
To exclude the possibility.
To exclude the possibility was an arrogance of intellect that we should not assume. You couldn't prove it, you didn't know it was there, but the arrogance for you...
Right, we don't know if it's there, we don't know if it's not there, let's look.
And if you take that, why can't you say, there's a lot we don't know? There's a lot of power there that we don't know.
There's a lot we don't know.
You know?
It's what I believe.
But
that doesn't mean that every fraudulent claim has to be accepted. We demand the most rigorous standards of evidence, especially on what's important to us. So if some guy comes up to me, and a channeler or a medium, and says, I can put you in touch with your parents. Well, because I want so terribly to believe that, I know I have to reach in for added reserves of skepticism, because I'm likely to be fooled and much more minor to have my money taken.